second, fellas, and we are going to get this rolling. Pull up the chats for Twitch and YouTube so I don't miss anything over there. Kevin Pond's in the house. How you doing, buddy? For any of you that are listening for the first time on podcast, you can also watch on stream at Twitch and YouTube. And all you got to do is go to rotoheat.com/Twitch or rotoheat.com/YouTube, and you can find our channels on each of those and watch live if you want. The Dynasty HeatSeekers podcast is live on Wednesday nights at 9:30 p.m. Eastern. And Kevin says I'm sounding slow. I mean, am I like
He said
hella
low.
slow? Oh, low.
Yeah.
All right, I will turn that up. Obviously. How does that sound, fellas?
Sounds the
Yes.
same on my end. Not sure if it.
Yeah, it's probably because I
Shade in there.
tweaked some stuff. OBS, so that's probably what it is. Nate Martin in the house. Bridger is loud.
Sounds the same.
Let's hear some Taylor Cornell over here. See how loud he is.
Hopefully not too loud.
Loud there. They may not even have heard you. All right. How's it sound, fellas? Does that sound better? We'll tweak with that and make sure that that sounds good. All right. So, tonight, we are going to be talking. I'm super low, he says. Well, damn. We're gonna redo this opening here as soon as I figure out why I'm so low. Filter. Move those. How does this sound? Do I sound better now, Chris? There's some kind of interference, buzzing.
That might have been my charger. I just unplugged it.
Oh, gotcha.
Kevin says you sound much better.
Much better. Cool. Okay, we're gonna restart this. I'm gonna log into Restream chat here. It'll take 1 second.
Adam says you sound perfect.
Oh, absolutely. It's, I got that voice of an angel. We can dream, right?
Mike Pace says we sound better. Sounds like we're all good.
Awesome. Okay, chat is fired up over here, so I don't miss anything on the other platforms. Don't want to ignore our people over there at YouTube. All right, here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna fire this back up. Welcome to the Dynasty HeatSeekers Podcast. Every Wednesday night, 9:30, you can watch live on YouTube, Twitch, and our Facebook group. Easy to find everything. All you got to do is go to rotoheat.com/Twitch/YouTube, or just search for RotoHeat Dynasty community on Facebook, and you can find us there. We have a fast-growing community of about 1,100 Dynasty degenerates, and we are having a great time getting ready for this 2019 season. So tonight on this episode, we are going to be talking some news and notes. There's not a whole lot. We've got a few injuries to talk about. But then we're going to get into the dynasty outlook of the Cincinnati Bengals. I know everybody's just super excited about this, and I believe, Taylor, this is your favorite team, correct?
Unfortunately, yes. I've grown up in Cincinnati, still live here, so I've always been a Bengals fan. So for better or worse,
Well, Cincinnati's a nice city at least.
yeah, it's not bad.
I
We
enjoyed it.
struggle with our professional teams.
Right? Well, Reds did some trades here in the past couple days, so maybe they're looking up. But
Yeah, we'll see.
yeah, so I want to remind everybody that Thursday nights we've also got the Dynasty Roundtable that streams live on all three places that we just told you about, and that's with our Beast IDP director Brad Menendez, who is sick today. So get well, buddy. We hope you get feeling better because we need your help getting out articles. So, quit slacking. I just want to say hey to some of the guys that showed up in the live stream. We got Bryce in the house. We got Rob, Paul, Rick, Nicholas Goyle, Ian Miles, and Josh Custer all watching. Thanks for showing up in the chat. Make sure you're asking any questions as we go along. And Paul just asked when we start an IDP drafts for ADP data, and that is going to be really soon, Paul, really soon. All right, so first thing I figured we should talk about is this was a hot topic last year. I got a lot of heat because I wanted to see Andrew Luck play before I was willing to pay the price that a lot of people were paying for him, coming back from that injury that hampered him for the better part of a year and a half. Obviously, he came back great, but now he's got this calf injury that is holding him out of camp, and I'm wondering if you guys are worried about that calf injury at all. What about you, Taylor?
I think July 31st, I'm not extraordinarily worried. I think it was Adam Schefter, or it might have been Chris Mortensen. Somebody tweeted out recently that their head coach was talking about kind of the parallels between wanting to play it safe, referencing the Kevin Durant thing. I saw some doctors following up on that actually, if it is a legit calf injury, that the Achilles is unrelated, and not to draw those parallels as a lot of people are going to do. So I think as long as it's just a calf thing and we don't find out that it's being coded as a calf and it's actually something else, I'm not too concerned right now. I don't know how much they were planning on playing him in the preseason anyways, but if I see him out there if he can get out there for one preseason game, and get some snaps, I'll feel fine. But for right now, I'm not totally worried.
What about you, Bridger?
I'm pretty worried. I mean, yeah, I disagree with Taylor here.
I love it.
It's all just too familiar with this guy. According to a little blurb on Roto World, it looks like the source is Kevin Bowen on Twitter. Luck said that he has not improved pain-wise since minicamp when he was sitting out because of this calf injury, and that's a pretty big red flag to me. They say that they're sitting him out a few more days to see how things go, but if he hasn't improved pain-wise since then, I don't have a whole lot of hope over the next couple of days. So I am a little concerned. I'm hoping they don't bring him back too soon, have anything major happen. He said that he has some ankle pain, which I saw. I don't know the credibility of them on Twitter, but, there's always the Twitter fantasy football doctors. And I saw some guys talking about how there shouldn't be any ankle pain associated with calf injuries. So hopefully it's not too serious, but I am personally worried.
I'll buy Andrew Luck off of you.
I don't own him anywhere. I was worried from 2 seasons ago. So
Yeah, the thing that people don't think about a lot is that quarterbacks use their legs a lot, even if they're not running quarterbacks. It's kind of like pitching. All that throwing comes from your lower body. It's not just your arm. And that's why I'm slightly worried about this calf injury. It can linger. It can definitely affect his throwing power and his throwing accuracy. So, man, if it lingers at all, that's going to be troublesome for the Colts because we know how much better Andrew Luck makes them and all the weapons that are in that offense. So I'm hoping, because I've bought into a few of the different weapons. I've got a lot of T.Y. Hilton, and we know that value takes a huge hit if he misses. So I am worried, but I'm trying to be optimistic about it. All right, so I'm hearing that it sounds decent on Twitch, but on Facebook there's an echo with both of you guys. So apparently I just sound good and you guys sound like shit. That's always great. So I messed with the volume here a little bit, so hopefully they sound better. And actually Nikolai, who is here on the RotoHeat team, he's a big Colts fan, and he said this might be why they have refused to sell Brissett. So they may be worried about it too. And we know this guy doesn't heal as fast as he's supposed to. And that's the scary part. All right, so we've got Derrick Henry down in Tennessee with his leg in a boot. And I think a lot of dynasty owners that have held on to him, or guys that bought him super, super low in comparison to where he's at now, still too high for my flavor. He's always been a valuable dynasty asset, but everybody thought he was going to be getting all these carries, and now his leg's in a boot. Bridger, are you worried about Derrick Henry?
No. He's another player I don't own anywhere, so as far as my rosters, I'm not worried about him. And I'm not too worried about the injury either. Schefter said that it's something that'll probably sideline him for a couple weeks, but as long as he avoids any setbacks, he should be 100% by week 1. So hopefully all goes well for him, but it sounds like his shouldn't be too much of a concern, whereas Andrew Luck's is just more of this unknown, lingering calf injury that we don't have any real information about.
What about you, Taylor?
I'm extremely worried. I'm just kidding. No,
I love it.
No, I'm in the same boat on this one, Bridger. I think we've seen a lot of the reports coming out lately with various players being injured during training camp and things like that. And I think the walking boot part sounds scarier than it really is, more precautionary than anything else. I mean, Mike Evans was carted off the field a couple days ago, and it was just cramps and those types of things. So I think teams are going to be overly cautious this time of year. Again, I guess if it turns into something that come preseason he's still in a boot or still unable to get any reps on it, I would start to worry a little bit as the regular season nears. But as of right now, I'm not too worried.
I am extremely worried. I am worried that people are going to see this as a buy low opportunity, and they're all going to go buy Derrick Henry, and then they're going to be completely disappointed when he catches 12 passes this year and they do not do very well in their PPR league. We've been saying to sell. He's a guy that I don't own anywhere. He's a monster running back. He is very, very good running the ball. But it's so hard for him to catch up to those guys that catch 40 passes, even 40 passes. And that's not even factoring in the guys that get you 60 to 70. He has to have so many touchdowns to make up that ground. And I just don't see him doing that and returning the value that people spent on him. So I don't have any. So as Bridger said, I'm not worried about my rosters, but I just think a lot of people are going to be like, oh, this is a perfect buy low. What I would be doing right now is buying Dion Lewis. And, last year did not go well, but it'll be his second year with that team, even though they've changed some personnel. I expect that offense, it's got to be better than it was last year. It was not very good last year. So he's almost free. Like, nobody's even thinking about him. And this was a guy that was like 6th round, 7th round ADP a year ago. And, it wasn't injuries and stuff. They were just not effective on offense. So I think if you can go out and get him super cheap, he's a guy to keep an eye on right now with Derrick Henry injured and us not knowing how long that's going to last. Michael Thomas gets a huge deal this morning. 5-year, $100 million. What was it?
61
guaranteed. Highest paid wide receiver. Just changed the whole landscape. Taylor, if you are the Saints, are you paying that amount for Michael Thomas?
I definitely am. I actually think Michael Thomas is one of those guys, we'll consider him an elite wide receiver in the league, that I don't think he's at his ceiling yet. His target numbers in that offense have not been as high as some of our other elite wide receivers, the Julios of the world and things like that. So I think this is a guy that you could definitely build your offense around between him and you've got Kamara on a cheap rookie deal. I'm totally cool paying that amount for a guy that is just a physical mismatch out on the field. And I know we know the end is near for Breeze, so whoever that next quarterback is going to need some sort of established wide receiver that I think Michael Thomas provides that.
What about you, Bridger?
Yeah, I've always thought Michael Thomas is a little overrated as far as being grouped in with that top tier of receivers. I don't disagree with the contract. He's been very productive in their offense. He's going to continue to be very productive in their offense. I do think Drew Brees obviously helps out a lot, but that's just the way it goes. I'm not real critical of any of these contracts we see thrown out because it's just next man up. If you're in that top group of receivers and you're the next one due for a contract, you're going to get that big record-breaking deal. And whoever signs next is probably going to get an even bigger deal. So, I mean, I don't have any problem with the contract, but I don't think Michael Thomas is one of the top 5 or 6 guys.
Do you think Amari gets more than Michael Thomas?
Maybe if they don't pay Zeke.
Yeah, I don't think that Amari will get more, but I definitely think Michael Thomas deserves deserves is a loose term. Obviously, it's up to debate. But the guy's got the most catches in his first 3 years of his career. He's been uber productive. He catches everything, and I think that he is quarterback proof almost. Obviously, really, really bad quarterbacks. There's nothing you can do about it. But being that big slot guy, he's more of a tight end hybrid and is going to be able to be that safety blanket no matter who's back there. He can go long. He does catch some long passes, but that's not his game. His game is getting a bunch of targets and working over the middle of the field and doing a lot of different things. So I think that he's going to be productive even if, like, next year, let's say Breeze retires this year and it goes to Teddy Bridgewater. I think that he's going to continue being productive and continue being peppered with targets. And fantasy-wise, that's what we're looking for, so I like that. But I think you could not let him sit out because Breeze's window is shortening, and you have to do your best to put the product on the field to try to win a championship. This is a very good roster, but you have to have Michael Thomas in that wide receiver group because it falls off big time after him, depending on how Smith develops in his second year and whatnot. But I think you had to get the deal done, if not for Michael Thomas, for Drew Brees.
Yeah, I agree for sure.
I don't know any other news and notes. We're obviously going to talk about another injury here in the main segment of this podcast, so we'll save that. Is there anything else that you guys wanted to touch on real quick before we get into some Cincinnati Bengals talk, or anybody in the chat have anything that you want us to touch on real quick?
I'd rather talk about almost anything other than the Bengals. So,
come on.
Do you guys have anything?
There's some fantasy options in Cincinnati.
Hey, feel free to hit that red button that looks like a phone. I'll take it from here.
What we need to do is have some way to incorporate like a buzzer from the people watching to where like when they don't like what Bridger says, they can just hit that buzzer and it'll let us know that they're angry at him. I know we've got a big group of people from Ohio in the chat, so I know we've got quite a few Bengals fans in the group. So I know some people are looking forward to it. Oh, see, there's Ian Miles calling you a hater.
I mean, I won't deny it. I hate the Bengals.
Them Steelers fans, nobody likes you guys either. Anything else, guys, before we get into it? Can you guys think of anything?
No.
Bryce said, what? Okay, yeah, this is one thing that we can talk about real quick. Okay, so for one, Tyreek has that bruised leg from that hit from, I think it was Breland, wasn't it? Where they carted him off. I haven't heard any like real updates. I thought he was just day to day. Have you guys heard anything else in regards to Tyreek Hill?
No, I heard that he bruised his quad, and that was it. So he should be good.
Yeah, he'll probably be flying around there real quick. And then this news that came out yesterday, and this is I don't know how this is gonna play out, but there is a lawsuit against the Dallas Cowboys and Ezekiel Elliott for covering up a car accident. And like, this is different because I've never seen a player and a team get sued for covering anything up other than like Deflategate and whatnot, which was football related, but anything off the field I don't remember anything like it. So it's kind of unprecedented, but it feels like something that could really just like blow the top off of this whole Dallas thing that kind of seems dysfunctional as it is. So what do you think about that, Taylor?
Yeah, I read the report on TMZ, which is kind of crazy that TMZ is like our NFL reporting breaking news on things. But I don't know. As I read through it, it was an interesting story, like you said, something that you haven't read anything like that before. Exactly. I think it was that they were also talking about how the not that the criminal charges were related to this, but that that the reason that the Cowboys covered it up is because they wanted him to play in the game the next day or that week or whatever, because I think it was a playoff game. Really interesting. I don't know exactly what the NFL specifically would be looking into. I don't really know exactly what, maybe I didn't read it correctly, but what the guy was suing them for, because it sounded like he had gotten some money already. So I don't know. It seemed like a little ambiguous, but definitely kind of piques your interest when something like that appears.
They paid him some hush money, and then he didn't hush, is what I think happened. What about you, Bridger? What did you think of this whole situation?
Yeah, I mean, it's just another thing for Ezekiel Elliott. The dude, I don't know if he can't catch a break, might not be the right term because he brings it all upon himself. But it's interesting. I don't know what kind of punishment would be handed out for that. I think the whole idea is just that they were covering up so that he didn't have to go into concussion protocol. So, yeah, I don't know what kind of trouble him or the Cowboys can get in for that. I'm assuming they'll either settle and not have anything happen, or they'll have to pay some kind of fine. I don't think it's going to be an issue with Ezekiel Elliott missing any games because of it or anything, but it is interesting.
Yeah, I really have no idea. I feel like if they were covering something up and it had anything to do with a criminal element, if he could have went to jail or if he was intoxicated or whatever, then obviously there could be some big penalties, whether it's suspensions, fines, and however they would reprimand a team for that, I don't know. But it's just How can the Cowboys, just in general, like, you can't even just blame Zeke for this. Like, obviously he got in an accident. He was probably being an idiot because that's what he tends to do. But when the team goes and covers it up for him, like, I I kind of even forget Zeke's involved and just look at that organization and say, you guys are just dysfunctional as hell. And I I don't know, man. It's pretty sad because they've got a lot of talent on that roster, and I feel like everything that's going on right now is just going to kind of derail that. Um, so that's my thought. Ian says every time I sell a player that's a big name, they get in some type of shit within the next year. Did it with Zeke and Tyreek.
Who has he traded recently so I can avoid
Yeah,
him?
I was gonna say, Ian, make sure you let us know who you trade, um, so we can also trade them before they lose value. That would be great. I would love it and appreciate it. All right, so Bryce says I go to OSU, and
Go Bucks.
Zeke had a rep of going to local bars and starting fights for no reason. The dude is just a dick. He couldn't be a part of this group. He breaks the first rule of RotoHeat. He is a dick. Um, Apparently, he ran a red light because he was late for practice and hit someone. 30,000 in damage to the vehicle. Apparently, Zeke should have went to concussion protocol. Yeah, I mean, I really have no idea. It's just the Dallas Cowboys and Zeke just can't stay out of the news. And I am glad that I don't play for that or I don't root for that organization because um, there's just a lot of drama surrounding them at all times. We can go back to
For sure.
Michael Irvin, snorting cocaine in a hotel room with hookers. The good old days. All right, let me pull up this ADP data here, and we are going to talk about some Cincinnati Bengals. Um, why don't we just go ahead and get started and get your guys' opinion on what they are going to. Is Andy Dalton going to start all 16 games, or is this modest Ryan Finley hype at quarterback going to be able to take any of that time from Andy Dalton? And we'll start with the Bengals fan.
Yeah, I think the only way Andy Dalton doesn't start all 16 is one, if he gets injured, obviously. But I know a lot of NFL experts are predicting the Bengals to be like 3-13 or something, which I don't quite see. I think if they're mired in some sort of losing streak and it's week 12 or later, I could see them seeing what they have in Finley. But I don't know. The pick of Finley was puzzling to me. There were plenty of other guys that I would have been more excited about potentially as projects. I was kind of hoping they would take Will Greer later on and just see what he developed. And of course, the news out of Carolina camp is that he's looking great. But I don't know. I think Zach Taylor's going to see what they have in Andy Dalton this year. I, I don't know. We'll see though. I'm not super inspired by Finley.
What about you, Bridger? Do you think Andy Dalton can hold off Ryan Finley?
Yeah, I mean, I don't see any reason that he'd get benched. Just like everybody else is saying, I don't think he's going to miss any games unless he's hurt. I could maybe see real late in the season if they are like 1-13, like I would expect them to be, then they could maybe see and experiment with what else they've got. But I think Andy Dalton will probably play all 16 games.
I love how he throws that like I expect them to be. Just that Steeler hatred towards them Bengals, just like I expect them to be. Um, yeah, I mean, I agree with you guys. I'm not excited by Ryan Finley. Andy Dalton's not great, but you could do a lot worse. Actually, right now we got quite a bit of depth at quarterback, um, but you could, if you made the move to Finley, it could get a lot worse than Andy Dalton is at quarterback. So, he is, and in Superflex ADP, Andy Dalton is 114th overall and the 26th quarterback. Bridger, do you think that's fair for Andy Dalton, or do you think he should be going a little bit later, a little bit earlier? What do you think?
I would say that's going to be his range. With those 25 through 32 guys, you just got to take your pick. I mean, most of those guys are looking at one more year as a starter unless they really do something great this year. And other guys in that range are going to be lower, later round pick rookie quarterbacks who are looking a year or two out from getting the chance. So I would say that that's a fair spot to be drafting him. I would say he's a value in a super flex league just because having those quarterbacks is always important. Starting Andy Dalton in the super flex on a week that your quarterback's injured or you've got a bye week is still going to be better than starting your fourth or fifth running back or your fifth or sixth receiver. So I like him in that range, but I like all the quarterbacks in that range. It's just kind of whatever. It's a 1-year rental kind of deal.
Taylor, you love him.
Yeah,
You think he should
yeah.
be higher?
I think it's fair. I think I agree with everything Bridger said. My main concern is if the Bengals stink this year and they take a quarterback early, I don't. They're able to get out of Andy Dalton's contract pretty easily after this year. I just have this fear that he's going to turn into a Blake Bortles, where Bortles started pretty much every game for the Jaguars for a while there, and then before you know it, free agency comes up and he's now a backup. Unfortunately, I could see that. I think there's just a glut of talent right now at the quarterback position, and teams are more likely to give their young guys, trusting their scouting departments, whether they should or not, to give their young guys a chance over signing an Andy Dalton, making him a starter. I think most of the NFL sees his ceiling. He needs perfect surrounding cast to be able to produce at a high level. So, I mean, that's my concern in a super flex startup is that you're getting a guy that you might only be able to start for 1 year, which is pretty risky in that range.
Yeah, I agree with both of you guys. I think it's fair and super flex. So I'm not going to get too far into talking about him. I think you guys said about everything that can be said about Andy Dalton. It's a pretty long conversation for Andy Dalton. Looking at rookie drafts, Ryan Finley is an early 5th round pick, 50th overall. The 7th rookie quarterback behind Murray, Haskins, Jones, Locke, Greer, and Stidham. Do you guys think that's fair for Ryan Finley? Bridger?
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much right where I would have him.
Easy enough. What about you?
Yeah, I'll say sure.
Sure. All right, we're gonna get a. Quarterbacks are boring anyway, so we're gonna go ahead and move on. I think, and maybe Bridger, since he's a Bengals hater, will disagree, but I think one of the running backs that has big potential to break out and take that next step forward, somebody that we've been looking for over the past 2 years, gets a new offense, a whole new regime running this team. Joe Mixon, who is now a top 15 dynasty asset, determined by ADP. What are your thoughts, Taylor, with the new regime coming in? Obviously, Mixon is the guy. Dalton back healthy. Driscoll's not back there. Do you think he takes that step? And, right now he's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. The 9th running back off the board. Can he be a top 10 running back this year in that offense? And do you like his long-term outlook in Cincinnati?
Yeah, I could talk Mixon forever. So I'll try to keep it brief. But I think I've got him at running back 5 in my Dynasty rankings. I'm really high on him. I was really high on him coming out of Oklahoma. The guy's produced on bad offenses in Cincinnati. He's produced behind terrible offensive lines. He's a dynamic player that you can count on, kind of not game script dependent. He can catch the ball. He's pretty good in the open field. I was randomly at a preseason game last year, and they split him out wide, and he caught a screen pass and made a guy miss in the open field and walked in for a touchdown. I think that just, unfortunately, he wasn't used that way as much in the last offense, but he's got that kind of potential. And I know there's going to be a lot of similarities trying to be drawn between this offense and the Rams. I think it's kind of a fine line where this is a completely different offense and different players. And Zach Taylor might have some other things he wants to do, but I think it's fair to say he's going to try to implement some of those things that he saw work in LA for his Rams. And I think seeing Mixon become a Gurley type of guy, I think he's got overall RB1 potential in a given season. And I think after this year, he very easily could kind of make that big jump up to make those big RBs now a group of 5. So I think he could be right up there with Barkley's, like Christian McCaffrey, Kamara, who am I missing? Zeke, yeah. Well, assuming Zeke stays out of trouble. So yeah, I think he could expand that where he's consistently going top 5, top 6 in Dynasty startups next year.
So Paul says that offense is running through Mixon. There's no step needed. He was dominant last year, and I don't disagree, but there is another level. Like, he's not in that first tier of running backs fantasy-wise. He may be skill-wise. I think he's very skilled. I thought he was actually the most skilled of the running backs that came out in his class, but obviously had a lot of baggage. Cincinnati's O-line was horrendous, especially his rookie year. I think they got a little bit better. You're going to be able to answer that more than I can, since you're a Bengals fan. But there is still another level that he can go to from a fantasy production point of view. I'm looking at the ranks. He was PPR running back 10 last year. He did only play 14 games, but he averaged 17.4. So if he played those 2 games and averaged that same thing, he would have been up in the James Conner, James White range at 6 and 7. So that tier that you were talking about, Elliott, Kamara, Gurley, McCaffrey, Barkley, are those guys that are ahead, and they're 60 points ahead of those guys, 50, 60 points. So there is definitely another tier that he can go to. Bridger, do you think he can hit that tier in 2019?
Mixon is at the top of my second tier of running backs. I've got the top 4, and then Zeke's sort of in a gray area right now, but Mixon is my running back 5 in my rankings. I think he's going to have a big year. My only real concern with him this year is I don't see a lot of touchdown upside in that offense, but he's going to be a total workhorse. He's going to see 300-plus carries. He's going to see plenty of targets. So, I mean, I like him. I don't have anything bad to say about him. I don't like him as a player. I don't like him as a dude, but I like him as a fantasy asset.
Yeah, I think, I'm not going to get into all that personal stuff. All I know is that this dude is a monster, and if they ever get a stable offense, like, he could be one of the top 3, PPR producers in the league. That's just the question, is how is this new offense going to work? You always wonder when a new coach comes in, there's so very few bell cows. Is he going to, continue using Bernard more than he should? Which, we can talk about him for a slight second. I don't know if you have any inside Cincinnati news on the usage of Bernard, but what do you think about him, Taylor?
Yeah, I think he's a good player. I'm a big Mixon guy, so unfortunately it's hard for me to root for Gio to get on the field much because I want Joe Mixon out there as much as possible. He's a capable back. He's a small guy, height wise, I guess. I think he could get mislabeled as just a pass catcher out of the backfield. He's had to be their RB1 before due to injuries and carry the ball, and he's fine doing that. I think he's a guy that's best suited getting 6 touches a game, something in that range. Not a guy like when it comes to fantasy that I'm super excited about rostering or I can't really imagine starting unless there's an injury because I'm envisioning Mixon being more of that bell cow this year. I think he averaged 17 carries a game last year, 4 targets, and I actually think there's room for those to go up this year. So I think fantasy-wise, he's not going to be as valuable as he is just as a football player for the Bengals.
Sorry, I just got a notification that Sterling Shepard has been cleared to participate in individual drills for the New York Giants. So if you are out there worried about Sterling Shepard and the whole New York Giants mess, that's some good news for you. Yeah, I'm the same way. Bernard's just, I mean, he's older, and he just seems like a guy he's probably going to irritate you a little bit. He's going to get some touches when you don't want him to, when you want Mixon to get them, like, some random in the red zone touches that just don't make any sense because that just seems like stuff that every coach does now with their running backs. But are there any other running backs in Cincinnati that you get excited about, Bridger, as maybe some cuffs or some stashes?
Yeah, stashes. I like Rodney Anderson. I liked him a lot in college. I was really excited for him this past year, and then he had that ACL injury, so that screwed that up. And now he ended up on a team where he's a clear backup. So that sucks, but he's still a good stash in deeper leagues. I like him in the late rounds of rookie drafts, and I do like Bernard. If anything happens to Mixon, if he gets injured, Bernard's going to see plenty of work, and I think he's going to have a decent target share anyway. Um, that team's just really depleted. Who knows what's going to happen with AJ Green this year? So I like those guys as stashes, but obviously Mixon's the guy.
Yep. What about you, Taylor?
Yes, I'm on the same page. I had Rodney Anderson, graded out pretty highly of this class of running backs, assuming he was healthy. Loved his tape. I guess I'm happy that the Bengals got him, but unfortunately, I don't see him getting a ton of run. But he's a fine stash because I think he's got the talent to produce sometime down the road. I think Gio is potentially a free agent next year. So as early as next year, Rodney Anderson could be a backup to Mixon, and then he's definitely a guy you want to be rostering as a handcuff in a offense that's hopefully on the rise by then.
And right now, this is super flex, but in super flex he's going right before Ryan Finley, and then we'll pull over here and just look at regular rookie ADP, and in that. He is the 17th running back coming off at 45th overall. So he's basically free. So if you're one of the people that like his tape, like, you can get him. And if you have Mixon, you can get him pretty cheap if you feel like he's going to get the carries if something does happen to Mixon. I don't normally cuff guys, but when they're free, it's a different story. I don't want to pay a lot of value for somebody that's not going to have value unless somebody else gets hurt. But when they're free like this, you can definitely go out and snag them, throw them in your taxi squad, and if anything happens to Mixon, you can throw them in. All right, so let's get to the wide receivers. And obviously, as a Bengals fan, I'm sure you're a little bit sad. A.J. Green, one of the great receivers of the past 10 years, has an injury, then has to have a procedure on his ankle. What's the feeling like in Cincinnati? I've heard they hope that he's only going to miss a couple games at the beginning of the season. What's the feeling like there in Cincy?
I'm not sure if we're cursed or not, but it's kind of a bummer. You want to have a full off season with all of your studs, especially with the new offense coming in. Not that I wonder if AJ Green can pick it up. I'm sure he can. He's a great player. It's really a bummer with the injury. I was hoping it wasn't as serious as it was sounding at first, and then it just seemed like every report that came out, it kept getting worse. But I mean, you got to look at the injury history. I'm not actually as concerned about his age when it comes to a dynasty league. Yeah, I don't want to be drafting him high or necessarily trading for him right now. But I mean, his skill sets should age fine. He was never a burner. He's a technician out there, great route runner, things like that. But he's just got so many lower body injuries the last few years. He had the foot injury last year. Then when he came back, he re-injured the foot again. Now he's got an ankle injury, so I'm concerned. I expect him back this year. Right now. I'm gonna take everybody at their word at these reports that he'll just miss a couple of games. But it's a little worrisome because after him and Boyd, it's pretty bare and unproven behind them.
What are your thoughts on AJ Green, Bridger?
I mean, all these injuries suck. He's not a guy that I'm looking to buy low anywhere. He's getting up there in age. He's past that age 30 mark. Um, just with ankle injuries, that kind of thing, it just seems like something that's going to be nagging him throughout the season, throughout the seasons. So I'm pretty much off him completely now. Um, I love him. He's an awesome player. I've loved watching him over the years, but yeah, he's not somebody that I'm interested in. Uh, Hopefully, if you bought him this offseason, hoping for a nice bounce back, you didn't pay too much, and hopefully he can come back for you, but I'm not optimistic about it.
So AJ Green was 36th overall in ADP in July. That's obviously going to change in August. I'm guessing that he's probably going to drop at least a round and a half, if not more, because of that age. A guy that was relatively, I mean, pretty damn healthy for the majority of his career. The wheels have kind of fallen off that in the past, 2 years. Like you said, awesome receiver. If he can come back, we've seen Julio Jones has had ankle this, ankle that forever. I think he's still going to be productive if he can play, but it kind of, I mean, does it remind you guys at all of like Baldwin? Like Doug Baldwin was right in this range last year, and we kept hearing, oh, it's not that bad. He's going to be back. Everything's good. And then he was just never the same. And that kind of has to worry you when you're talking about any 30-year-old receiver. I mean, is it possible that the AJ Green that we knew is gone forever?
Yeah, I think he is. I don't think he's ever going to return to form. It's just unfortunate. I mean, who knows how good the dude could have been if he came into the league with an elite quarterback and was able to be with him and have a healthy career for a decade. But unfortunately, it didn't work out that way. He got stuck with an average guy um, with a bad head coach and has a bad injury bug. So I just don't expect him to come back to what he was. Even now, with people looking to buy low after this injury, I'd honestly probably cash out if you can get anything of decent value. Um, Paul said a few months ago that he sold him for a 2021st. That's about where I valued him before the injury, was a single 2021st. So I doubt you can get that kind of value now, but I don't think he's coming back.
Trying to look here. This is a guy before his injury last year was averaging 16.6 PPR points per game. That was, it looks like about 15th in the NFL. Obviously, he only played 9 games, but in the same range as like Robert Woods, Emmanuel Sanders, Brandon Cooks. So, if he falls off even 20%, you're looking at a guy that's going to end up being like a back end wide receiver 3 at best. So, I'm kind of with you, and I actually did just buy him before the injury. So maybe what you should do is I should tell you guys who I acquire, and Ian tells us who he trades, and you'll get all the other players, and you'll win a lot of championships. So obviously Boyd is next up. Just got that new contract. Broke out in his 3rd year last year, but was more productive with AJ Green on the field. Are you now worried about Boyd at all, Taylor?
I'm personally not. I'm extremely high on Boyd. I realize that. I've got him as a top 20 dynasty wide receiver. I believed in his talent coming out. I think a lot of the production issues the first couple of years were related to coaching more than anything else. It's a poorly run team under Marvin Lewis, and our offensive coordinators are trash. Last year he did have that breakout. I know his numbers were better with AJ Green, but I also know that it was kind of coincided a little bit with the Dalton injury. So towards the end of the year, he's catching passes from Jeff Driscoll, which was really ugly.
It was ugly.
It was a hard game to watch. But I'm a believer in his talent. I mean, I think obviously having AJ on the field is helpful for him, but he's not a guy that after the AJ news that if I was drafting today, I'm dropping him considerably or anything like that. I still think there's value in him, even if he sees additional coverage. There's value in him being the top wide receiver option on an offense. So it didn't really bother me too much or impact my rankings. I don't know if I'm expecting the exact same production as last year. I'd probably put that back at like his ceiling. I don't see him necessarily going extremely higher this year with this quarterback in this offense. But I'm excited to see if he can duplicate it. I thought that contract was an absolute steal.
Yeah, if he produces like that, it was a pretty good contract for the Bengals. What are your thoughts, Bridger?
I agree. I like Tyler Boyd a lot. He's at about wide receiver 20 for me in my dynasty rankings. I am worried about him for this year. Not so much that I don't think he can be a wide receiver 1, but he's going to be a wide receiver 1 in a real depleted offense with a messy quarterback situation, a brand new offense of that. And I don't see a lot of upside for him. Hopefully he'll get a whole lot of catches. He'll be good in PPR. If he does slump throughout the first part of the season, I think that's a good buying opportunity, and I'd be all over that. But I am worried this year. I wouldn't feel real comfortable starting him every week to begin the season this year.
Yeah, I can get on board with that. I've been big on Boyd since he came out. He was actually like, you have your one guy in every draft, and he was my guy. Not that I wanted him first overall, obviously, because that was Zeke, no brainer. But he was the guy that I was trying to get everywhere that I could, and Paul says he had decent but not elite tape. Never had elite talent, anyways. Clear sell. I don't agree with that. I don't think that he was elite, but he's kind of in that like Cooper Kupp range where yes, they don't have like top end speed. They don't have the top end size, and they aren't going to go up and snatch the ball away from a bunch of guys and stuff like that. But these slot guys that can run routes and run good routes and catch everything, they have value when it comes to what we want them to do. And they have value to a real team. But, yeah, he's not going to make A.J. Green catches. He's not going to do what A.J. Green did, but in a different way. Like, he has a chance to be one of the better slot receivers and route runners in the NFL. And I've always liked him, but it is a little worrisome for this year, but the Bengals are going to have to throw a lot. So I think he's going to get peppered with targets, and, targets cure all. The more these guys touch the ball, then the more fantasy points they score. That's just the way it goes. So it could be a blessing in disguise that they are trailing. If they start 1-13, they've obviously been trailing a lot, right, Bridger?
Yes. Yep.
Just as you predict.
Just as you predict. So that could be a benefit. So let's look past the two guys that are obviously guys that you can comfortably have on your roster, even if they're not going to be in your lineup per se. But is there anybody else that you want? I know there's still some John Ross truthers out there. But is there anybody else that you're stashing? Because if A.J. Green's out, it's not going to just be Boyd.
Yeah, it's tough. I like Tyler Eifert where he's going at tight end 26. If he has healthy weeks, then he should get some targets. I'm not a big fan of the rookie they brought in. So hopefully he can have some kind of health this year. And at tight end 26, he's basically just a free flyer, so definitely worth a shot. But other than that, it's just bleak, and that's why I'm worried about Boyd. There's just nothing else there to draw much attention away. Hopefully Boyd can have all that volume we're talking about. Him and Mixon should both be good guys this year. But other than that, I don't see a lot of upside anywhere.
Taylor, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm actually coming around on John Ross a little bit. So I completely kicked him to the curb. And I still think history is not on his side based on how he's produced his first couple of seasons. But I am a little excited to see him utilized, hopefully better than he's been in the past. It's kind of what I talked about with Boyd's struggles his first couple of years. Ross had a nightmare of a rookie season, and a lot of it wasn't getting opportunity. He fumbled once, and I don't think he saw the field like the rest of the season.
Yeah, he had negative points in his. Yeah, that's not good.
I was at that game. It was tough. But I mean, he was managed terribly. I'm excited to see him in an offense. If I draw those parallels to the Rams offense, thinking of him as kind of like the Brandon Cooks, I obviously believe Brandon Cooks is extremely more talented and better, but just seeing him in that type of role, my concern with that, though, is Andy Dalton has zero accuracy on his deep ball, which kind of limits a little bit of what John Ross's strengths are, but we did see him produce as a red zone weapon somewhat weirdly. I wasn't quite expecting to see him. I think he had did he have 7 touchdowns last year? No, he had a higher number of touchdowns than I was expecting.
Did he really have 7?
On 21 or 23 catches or something.
He was getting some red zone looks that I just wasn't expecting them to look his way there. But I'd be excited to take, if I can get him super cheap and see what he can do as a potential number 2 in that offense behind Boyd, assuming A.J. Green's out for a little bit. Deeper cuts, I know some people like Stanley Morgan coming in. He's a rookie. I don't know what to expect out of him just because he lacks any kind of draft capital, really. I'm with Bridger, though, on Eifert. He was someone that in any sort of tight end premium league, I'm trying to get real late. Just because when he is healthy, the guy produces. He's Dalton's probably one of his favorite red zone options when he is out there. Obviously, health's the biggest issue, so I think you can't draft him as your top tight end or probably not even your second tight end. But having him on your roster, he's going to be able to provide some weeks where you can plug him in and start him and get some decent points.
Yeah, I was going to save the tight ends, but that is good because I've, Eifert's actually from my area, and I've always been rooting for him. And last year, he actually, it was the first time, he had a lot of back problems. and that had hurt his value, and he was having a hard time staying on the field. And then he finally kind of looked like he was getting through that. You never really get through a back problem, but then what was it, an ankle break or I mean, it was more of a freak injury rather than the typical things that had kept him out before. So it could kind of be a blessing in disguise that his back had another year of rest, and another year of healing. And who knows, maybe he comes back and he can, play 12 games, and is obviously his red zone efficiency when he was healthy was just crazy. Touchdown rates, but there is a wide receiver that I have been on since he came out. He was a 4th-round pick. He's a big guy. He's got speed, and his name's Josh Malone. Mm-hmm. And he's going into that typical third-year breakout season. Obviously not real high draft capital, but there's always been a little bit of talk coming out of Cincy of is Malone going to make a way into this offense? And I don't know if the last regime just didn't like him. He didn't get a lot of opportunity, even with Green out. But, I mean, I liked his measurables. I liked his speed, his size, and I would love to see him at least get an opportunity. I literally stashed him on every single roster last year because he was free. He's free right now. So, if A.J. Green's out and they're looking for a big receiver that has that now has 2 years of experience under his belt, he could be a guy that gets some opportunity in this offense if he has a good camp. So that's one guy that a lot of people aren't talking about. And you can literally get him for free if you've got, Marshawn Lynch sitting on the back end of your roster and are trying to figure out who to pick up in his place. Maybe Josh Malone's a guy that could be a sneaky stash. Other than that, I mean, Auden Tate's still there, right?
Yeah, I think so.
I mean, I didn't really like him coming out, but he did make a few plays in training camp last year. So, somebody's going to have to get targets because, Boyd's not going to get 100% of the targets in the passing game. So
maybe that's how Mixon gets to that next tier is just the
I already expect
targets he's getting.
I already expect him to get a bunch, but there's still some other wide receivers going to have to get, 4 or 5
Michael Crabtree. Maybe they'll sign Michael Crabtree. I'm trying to look at some free agents out there. It's pretty ugly.
It'll probably what you guys will probably do is get Martavis Bryant after he if they take him off the
reinstate him.
Yeah, if they reinstate him, that's the word I was looking for. Adam Krause says, "Here's a laugh for y'all. I inquired about Green post-injury as a buy low and was told it would take Devontae Adams straight up. Sometimes you just get bad trade offers, and that's what that was. Was
that 2019 or 2017?
I think he's talking about right now. like in the last 4 days, somebody wanted Devontae Adams straight up for AJ Green. You know what? I can't blame the other guy. If you're gonna shoot for the moon, you might as well try to overshoot it. All right, Bridger, is there anything else? I doubt it. I already know the answer to this, but about the Bengals that you want to mention?
No, I think we covered it.
Taylor, this might be a little bit different since you're the fan. Is there anything else about the Bengals you want to say?
Not necessarily. I'm curious as to what your guys' predictions are on. I mean, I heard Bridger's outlandish prediction for a record, but I'm curious to see what you guys think. Because, like I said, I've seen a lot of guys predicting him. The Bengals is potentially a bottom team in the NFL, and that was before the AJ Green injury. And maybe I'm a homer, so I don't quite see it that bad. But I'm thinking like a 6-win team, perhaps. What do you guys think?
I'm going to look at their schedule real quick, and we already know Bridger thinks they're starting 1-13. So
yeah, I don't know if they'll really be 1-13, but I do expect them to be a top 4 pick next year. they don't have any talent on the offensive side of the ball. It's really that simple. They've got an okay defense. They brought in some nice pieces for the O-line. Jonah Williams next season will be a big addition, but I think they're going to be a top pick in the draft next year. They're going to take a quarterback, and with the new offense implemented, they're going to be looking up from there on out. But this year, I just don't see how they win more than 3 or 4 games.
Okay, so I've got their schedule up. I'm going to rattle off some teams that I think they can beat, and you guys can tell me if you think I'm wrong. But the teams I think they can beat, the Bills in Week 3, the Cardinals in Week 5, and that's kind of a 50-50 there, but, I mean, they can beat them. It's at home. Actually, you know what? That Bills game's at Buffalo, so that's tough. Winning in Buffalo. Then they go on a stretch that, like, I don't look at a team and say they should beat that team until November. But they're on the road. But the Raiders, like, they don't play any of the easy teams at home. They play them all on the road, and you know how hard it is to win on the road in the NFL. So, and then they have another stretch. They do have the Jets at home on December 1st. That could be a win. So I think we've got, 4 like potential wins, but you never win all the potential wins. And
then, I do count one of the. I don't think they'll get swept in division this year, just because I think even if the Ravens are more talented, those are always slugfests.
Absolutely,
and I honestly think they could beat the Steelers in one game. Come on. Give me one.
I was gonna get to that. I'm not forgetting about that. So, but the other team, and I'm basically just looking at teams that I say, okay, these teams are also bad, so they could maybe beat them. But December 22nd they play the Dolphins, but it's in Miami. So literally all their easy games are on the road, except for the Jets, and we don't know what the Jets are going to be. They've changed a lot, so they don't have a favorable road schedule. Like, they play at Seahawks, at Steelers, at Ravens, at Rams, at Raiders, at Browns.
All right, they might only win 3 games this year. I think corrected.
So, but I do agree. It's hard for any team to get swept in division because they all play great in division. The home games, like, normally the home team, even if they're not very good, sticks in the games. We saw Miami knock off the Patriots last year. Miami was horrendous. So, I don't think they lose all those. But when I'm looking at that schedule, like, I think a 4 to 5 win team is like the top end, maybe 6, and probably in that 3 to 4 range. And just because their schedule's tough, their road schedule's not favorable, and all their easy guys, like, their home is they do have the 49ers at home, but the 49ers, Cardinals at home, Jaguars, Ravens, Steelers, Jets, Patriots, Browns. So they've got a pretty tough schedule this year. So
if you're stealing 6 games, you might as well only win 2 or 3.
Absolutely.
The last thing you want is to get stuck with pick number 7, 8, 9, something like this year, where you miss out on those top quarterbacks.
Absolutely, I agree with that. All right, so I think we're all agreeing that, like, that 4 to 5 win range is about where they're at, unless something good happens. And if AJ Green's out, then it could get worse. But who is a player that you think is going to drop in value and be a buy at the end of 2019? And who is somebody that you think may raise their value? We did this last year, and with these types of teams, it gets kind of tough to pick somebody. But is there anybody that can jump inside the top 100? And do you feel like anybody can drop more than 50 spots in the ADP? Bridger, go first.
Man. I don't really see anything. If Eifert has a healthy season and scores a decent amount of touchdowns, comes back, I could see him getting close to that 100-ish range. Other than that, not really. I don't see anybody with top 100 upside. We mentioned some of the lower end guys, Stanley Morgan, Josh Malone, that kind of guy, who could certainly raise their value a lot by doing pretty much anything this year. But I don't see a lot of top 100 upside.
Yeah, because Tyler Eifert's 178, so he could definitely move up because he actually went undrafted in 2. So he's very polarizing. He went as high as 147 and as low as undrafted. So and we draft 192 players in these mock drafts. So Taylor.
Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking, like I said earlier, I think Rodney Anderson could make a big jump, but he's not going to be top 100 type of jump, and that's really only if it clears out a little bit ahead of him with Gio leaving, and who knows, something happens with Mixon or whatever. But I don't see anybody making that jump, even if John Ross has a good season. I'm not sure what his ADP is right now, but I can't imagine jumping up into the. Yeah, I can't. He would have to have like 1,000 yards and 10 touchdowns, I think, for people to jump him up that high, which is unlikely. So, no, I think when you look at this offense, you're looking at Boyd and Mixon, and then not a whole lot else to get too excited about right now.
Paul says their riser will be Jerry Jeudy.
I was reading Twitch comments and yeah, we're not even gonna get into that. I agree with you guys. I mean, AJ Green's the only one that I think can fall out, and that's if like he literally misses the whole season. Tyler Boyd and Mixon are probably like with the volume that they're gonna get, they're probably actually going to move up slightly a year from now if they stay healthy. But other than that, like there's just not a whole lot here, and we're gonna end it on that note. I did, just for anybody that's argued with me over the off season as a Bears fan, I did get a notification that there is a lot of talk out of Chicago that Tariq Cohen is not going to get as many touches as he has in the past because they want to get Montgomery a lot of touches, and they will have Mike Davis involved in the offense too, and Tariq Cohen's going to lose some of his touches. That's the talk out of Chicago. Just in case you were overvaluing Tariq Cohen. All right, Taylor, I want to thank you for coming on again. It's been a little while since you were on, but I know you had some air conditioning issues, right?
Yeah, about 4 weeks without air conditioning during a heat wave in June made things a little rough around this household. So we're back. $6,000 later with a new unit, we're back.
That's never fun at all. But again, thank you for coming on. You can follow him on Twitter at what's your handle?
At RotoHeat Taylor.
At RotoHeat Taylor, right there on the screen. And I had to ask because I'm that tired. Bridger, thank you again, my co-host. It's always great every Wednesday.
Absolutely.
9:30. Okay. We gotta get into this chat a little bit. Tectonic Beatbox. Hello, how you doing? If you're over there on Twitch, make sure you give us a follow if you're a fantasy football player. Heckrear says, I used to have a cat. It was pretty fat. Then my mom took the Xbox and I drowned that fucker. I mean the cat. So, all right, peace out, boys, ladies, and something, I don't know, just crazy stuff happened. So, if you're wondering where all the weird stuff goes down in RotoHeat, it's over on Twitch, apparently. Let us know if you have cats. And other than that, I think it's good to call it a night. So I appreciate everybody coming by. like I said, we will be back tomorrow with I think it's the Chargers. I think tomorrow's the Chargers. So we'll have a little more fun to talk about tomorrow. So thanks again for stopping by, and make sure you check out RotoHeat.com.